Time now for SportsCage Pat Chat, powered by Selby Mainline Motors. The name you trust. Mainline Motors is now only 30 minutes from Regina. Amazing deals and award-winning service is now at your doorstep. SelbyMainline.ca.
Joining us for our next installment of PATS Chat. Sure appreciate the time. Brad Herauf, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with a big bounce-back win for you and your team after a bit of a tough U.S. road swing, and then dropping that one on home last week. A big 4-0 shutout against the Blades, snapping that streak, or the skid, I should say. What adjustments did you guys make?
It's funny. We were pretty shorthanded. We were without our two top scorers into the game, and it's sometimes when you get rosters like that, your team kind of just goes in survival mode, we really had everyone just follow the game plan, do exactly what we needed to do to, slow down Saskatoon. And sometimes when you're shorthanded like that, it's funny how your team can react.
Sometimes you just need to be put in the pressure cooker a little bit, hey?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how we've been all season long. We always have really good third periods, or don't start on time all the time, but yeah.
Well, former Warrior Matthew Hutchinson earned his first career WHL shutout. My God, shutout. It would be great if I could speak. It's been a long day, Brad. 32 saves for him. How did the team rally around him after that win? Because that's got to be a pretty special moment for him.
Yeah, it's equivalent to us getting a hat trick or 4 goals performance for players. Always things like that, and it was the first of his career. It's always fun to be around those moments, and the boys generally celebrate pretty good when stuff like that happens. How
does this win really shift the momentum in that locker room now? Because it's not easy going on that U.S. Division road trip. You don't see these teams often. You don't get the results that you want. You come in, you fight hard, you get the win. Now, what does that mean looking ahead on the schedule before the Christmas break?
Well, I think that obviously we don't play for another 6 days. So practice is obviously a little lighter. The morale around the dress rooms obviously going to be a lot different than after a loss. But for us, obviously we were 0-6, but we really felt the first 2 games of the road trip, we lost 2-1. We just ran into hot goaltending, even on good days. Everett, Portland, Seattle, they're real tough places to play. So obviously we weren't not wanting to win or not wanting to lose, but those are always going to be tough things. The only game we really disappointed ourselves was probably the Wenatchee game, the last game of the road trip. Obviously we lost that game. You never want to lose, but when you go back and you look at reasons you lost and go through the video, it usually tells you, if you're going down the right path or if you're way off, and you got to change a lot of things.
I heard it got a little chippy down in the States too with some of the fans.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun playing down there, guys. It's, I wouldn't say old time hockey, but just the crowds are so into it. And they're always really packed. They have really good attendance. So it's definitely a different experience. Even in Seattle, man, that place is this makes me smile being there. It's such a cool environment. And it's something that stressor that our kids don't always get in this conference. When the crowd's into it like that, or they're cheering at every shot on net, and you feel like you're being overwhelmed more than you really are, and just because the crowd is reacting to everything that way. So, yeah, it was. I think we were trying to sell some tickets down there for them.
Coach, as you know, I'm old, and it was back in the day when I was around the league a lot more than I am now. It seemed like you get 12, maybe 13 days off after coming off your U.S. Division road trip. You didn't. You come back on Sunday, you're back on the ice Friday with 2 games in 3 nights. Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's for us, I think just because we were 0-6 on the road trip, it was a good thing that, we get back playing right away and don't have so much time off. It's kind of funny. We played like 8 games in 12 days and now we have 4 games in 17 days. So, the schedule kind of goes that way sometimes. For us, it's probably not the worst thing because we've been pretty banged up here the last 6 weeks. So it's probably a good time for us to have a few days off here in between and have a little bit of lighter schedule, get some guys healthy and get back in the lineup.
How do you coach during this time? Because obviously you're not going to go kicking garbage cans in dressing rooms each and every night if things aren't going your way. How do you maintain being positive with the group and still making sure that they are evolving and developing as a group going forward, despite the challenges you may have with the roster?
I think the big thing is just, teaching them habits of, treating the game like it's your job. And then holding them accountable to it. In the end, it's their career. They're the ones that got to step up and be a professional about your process in junior hockey. All these kids have been, in some capacity, been given, incredible talent when they're youthful, and then have great support from their parents, all the way up. But at some point now when they're 16 to 17, 18 years old, to me, that's what, separates the Connor Bedards, the Sam Steeles, the Adam Brooks, the real good players we've had here in the past, Tanner Howes, those guys at 16, 17, they're acting like they're 22, 23 years old. They're not just showing up to the rink and putting their gear on. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that, makes their preparation, their performance.
How important or how incredibly challenging, maybe is the word, to keep guys dialed in. Christmas is coming up. Obviously, with a young team, you've got a group that's excited to go home, see family, friends that they haven't seen in a few months.
You know what? That's a great question. And it's a reality. I think even us as adults, get focused towards vacation time when you still got a job to do. But, for our group, I think losing those games in the road trip, upset us a lot. We want to get some wins back. We feel that we should be better in the standings as a group. We've proved to ourselves that we can play with the best teams in this conference, and it's just about being consistent. A lot of it for us right now is a little bit of health. Having guys in and out of the lineup. We haven't had a full healthy team yet this year, or a full roster, but I think it's lent to a lot of great experience by our young guys and a lot of APs that have stepped up and played lots of meaningful games that'll be huge for their development, later on this season and into next year.
When you and the rest of the hockey ops crew were looking at the roster and the construction this spring, whether it had been at the draft or throughout the summer, you obviously had an idea of what this roster could be and what this team might look like. Has that roster and that paper lived up to where you're at right now? Maybe not in terms of results, but in terms of the team that you want them to be? I think that we're constantly working towards it. I think that, that's one thing that's been a little bit of struggle for us this year is, playing to our identity and keeping that consistency with it. I think when we do, we get results like we did last night. I think that we were getting there. And a lot of times it's, we've played our best hockey when we've had our shortest lineups. And I think that, sometimes when we get your good players back in there, it's kind of like everyone just sits back and it's like, okay, now they're here to take over. So for us, I think it's just about learning to win, learning how to, making sure our slides don't become longer than they need to. And for us, we started off 1-6, and then we, went a little bit, won 2/3, 700% of our games at for about 15, and then we lost 6 in a row again. So there's definitely, we're somewhere in the middle between, those two things. We're not a 700 win team right now just yet. But we're also not a 1-6, 0-6 team. So for us, it's just about continue to keep with our belief in our group. And that's, to me, is the biggest thing, is that
it's what the group thinks of themselves. I can tell them all they want, but really, the good teams, and for us as a team, because we taking a big step from last year with how many players we had last year, now this truly into our first year of kind of coming out of it, and with all our trades, and now we're trying to look to add some players, not subtract from our roster. So there's definitely been a learning curve with our group, but the expectation has grown immensely within that locker room, and to me, that's a huge sign, and a very positive sign.
So, Brad, we can see the C's and the A's on the jerseys. We know who some of the leaders on this team are, but maybe tell us a little bit about some of those players on the roster who maybe we wouldn't expect to be lifting up guys in the room and holding each other accountable.
Yeah, I think we got a couple of those guys. I think that's one thing about our group. We got a couple real good glue guys that don't necessarily have those letters right now. Jace Aglin comes to mind. He's just a blue collar farm kid from Saskatchewan here, but he's just an excellent teammate. Guys really enjoy to be around him, and he leads by example, and he's not scared to tell people, to be better and help each other out. Dayton Shomps is another guy on our team that, he's a heartbeat guy for us. He's excellent in practice. Some days when it gets cold and we practice in the morning, there's long days, not much sleep. It's tough to have energy in practice. And Dayton Shomps, I think, is one of those guys that ensures that everyone's on their toes and, brings energy, sometimes when it's hard to pull it out of our group.
You mentioned Jace Eglund by name. If I'm not mistaken, Brad, he was the teddy bear toss goal winner. He was the one that scored the first goal last season, and all of those teddy bears came raining down. Is that ever a conversation in the locker room before the games, or do you encourage them to put it out of their minds on big games like that?
Truthfully, I don't really talk about it. Myself, I think we talk more about like the process of, hey, if we score in the last 3 minutes, we're just going to get off the ice and they're going to flood and we'll continue. Stuff like that we'll talk about. But as far as, reading into the moment, they know it. There's no sense in me talking about it or bringing it up. I think it's just about, if we score it or we don't score it, we got to score the next one and we got to have more goals than them by the end of 60 minutes. So really, for us, I think that's just kind of more or less what I would say, focused on.
I apologize if this is a bit of an unfair question, but I love hanging around the scouts room or listening to people talk hockey at the rink. And primarily it's because I'm listening because I don't have anything probably worthwhile to say to interject into the conversation. But one of the things that was brought up was, hey, wait till you see what rosters look like after Christmas. And my assumption was, okay, yeah, you're right, because the trade deadline is right there. But there was some feeling or thoughts that maybe some guys that had went NCAA are going to, maybe that's not for me and try to come back. Is that a thought on the hockey ops team's mind, as some guys that may be looking to return to junior hockey in Canada?
I think that's, I've heard the same things too. I think there's, it's going to be a lot of things, a lot of speculation in the next, since it's really started. This is the first year into it, and I don't think anyone really knows exactly how it's going to go. I think everyone just speculates what's happening. I guess for me, that's more or less something that Tristan or Dale Durkach, that's kind of his area, what he brings in. My job's pretty much the 25 people he puts in front of me, and then it's my job to work with what we have from there. Those guys are more or less, I would say, from really focused on 25 to 50, adding to our organization depth wise that way.
So the 25 that are in front of you, what do you need to get out of them before Christmas to set yourselves up for, even though it isn't really the second half, it is kind of the second half of the season after Christmas?
Well, I think us getting healthy is a big thing. I think we talked about earlier, just like us having a little bit of a lighter schedule these last, 16 days. And I think it's just, finish off on a winning note. I think, we easily could have won the Brandon game. We played 47 minutes and then just had 3 minutes of like bounces that 2 of them wouldn't even happen, So for us, it's just continue to believe in ourselves. Don't listen to the outside noise. We have to stay focused on what we are in the dressing room. And I think we've taken some really big strides in being a team. Last year we had almost 49 players play for us last year. It was really difficult on the players. It was really difficult on the coaching staff, but we really felt the time for our organization, where we were with our picks and stuff like that. And I think, we really seen a huge step last spring, in the 2 players we acquired. And in Liam and Maddox, obviously, but the rest of our draft class, we have another a third first round kid that doesn't get talked about enough, who pretty much led BC in scoring. We got 2 second rounders that we were really happy with, defensemen that are going to be 6'2", 6'3", mobile skating kids. So I think that it's not the progress that everyone wants to have, but it's the progress that's been necessary, and it's the progress that the people that are really in hockey and do this for a life, like, they see that we're going in the right direction. We feel we're going in the right direction. It's just about staying patient right now. We want to play in the playoffs this year. We want to play some meaningful games, down the spring or down the stretch, and I think that we're well on our way to accomplishing some of those goals right now. I know our group is really hungry. Our older guys, they want to play meaningful games and playoff games, clearly. So yeah, I think that for me, I feel very confident in our group. Feel very confident in Dale. For us, it's our job. It's to put us in a position where we got to force him to add some players to our team. And I think that right now we just haven't had our full health in our group yet, but we're really close, and we'll see where it goes January 10th.
Sorry, I got to interrupt. Like, if there's one thing that amazes me, is how does Brad Herauf not have a single gray hair? He had 49 guys on the roster. Like, I'd have gone full Timbits with the guys putting their names on the front of their helmets, like, at one point. Like, I don't know how you did it.
I'll move closer because there's gray hairs.
Brad Herauf, of course, head coach of the Regina Pats, joining us right now. Shifting gears ever so slightly, I know that you're familiar with Connor Bedard's game. So the men's Olympic hockey tournament is supposed to happen in February, assuming they have somewhere to play. There's been a lot of conversation around Connor and Macklin Celebrate and all these guys, who's going to crack the roster. Do you think Connor Bedard has earned that spot?
I think he's really put himself in a really good position. I think that he's proven a lot of people wrong. And I'll tell you one thing about Connor, and this is probably like all the great people, when they really want to do something and they're put the pressure on to do it, they arise to the occasion. So to me, I'm not surprised at all. I know the knocks people have been saying about Connor, but to me, it was always about him just coming of age. Like, really, he's still 20 years old. He should be in the Western Hockey League right now. Yeah. And I think that people, it is crazy. And no other sport, like, barely ever, like, when's the last, like, even NBA is the last 18, I guess Cooper Flag has come in there, but everyone is so well trained nowadays that, like, it's so uncommon for a 18, 19-year-old to dominate a professional sport in any capacity. So in hockey, with the salary cap, with that being younger, I think that people lose sight of that. And, he's still a kid, he's still evolving, and everyone talk about his game, how he needs to get better. Well, yeah, he does. He's 20 years old. And, but look what he's doing right now. He's his 3rd year in his league. So yeah, he was super cool to be around. It got to see so many things that were just like, you're like, wow. And so to me, to see what he's doing right now, to putting the pressure on Hockey Canada, proving a lot of people wrong about his game, it's he'll do anything to be great. And I'm not surprised at all.
Very well put. I love that. Brad Herauf, head coach of the Regina Pats. You guys are back in action at the Brandt Center. Teddy Bear Toss Night this Saturday, so remember to bring your stuffy.
Yes.
No, appreciate the time, Brad. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.